showtime.
It's showtime. And here we go.
Welcome into another episode of the Book Geek Podcast. I'm your host, George T., and yes, this is my Marvel movie and TV show review. As you all know, I am a huge Marvel fan. DC, you're not ever going to catch up, no matter what James Gunn decides to do with the DC universe. Marvel universe is back on track. I said this at the beginning of the year. I've said it in a few episodes. I even said it last year during my two-part Marvel stuff. If you have not heard that one, it is only audio, unfortunately. Go back and look at those two, or listen to those two. Marvel is headed out of the multiverse saga. It was very sluggish through Phase 4, where you had the movies were terrible, the shows were good. So you had a very imbalanced MCU after the success of Endgame, and to a lesser extent, Spider-Man, which ended Phase 3. So now we get into Phase 4, we're doing the multiverse thing, and again, like the show's good, movie's bad. And they were pumping out too much product. Then the whole Jonathan Majors thing happens, and Kang is no longer a part of the MCU. Maybe, just maybe, now that everything's been cleared up and he's back doing movies, will we see Kang get overtaken by Doom in Doomsday? Maybe. Who knows? Or somewhere along the line. But for now, Phase 5 is now officially ended. And Phase 5 ended strong with, and I know people are not going to like this, but Captain America Brave New War did exactly what it needed to do. It needed to right the ship of movies that were trending horribly for Marvel. Marvel continued to do really good quality of TV shows, and they decided to go back to what brought them success, which is quality over quantity, and that's why they've scaled back a bunch. So, in this episode, we're going to see Daredevil and the number one movie in America, Thunderbolts. And again, compared to Endgame as one of the best Marvel movies, maybe, maybe not. We'll have to find out. You have to stick around. Okay, so again, Captain America did its job. It led us to Thunderbolts. Well, let's backtrack. Daredevil. Okay, I will admit, I was not a big fan of Daredevil, the original show that came out. Subsequently, I actually did like this version of it. I don't know what really changed my mind on this, but it was well done, and we're going to get into it right now. So, off the top, we get the first show. We see, obviously, Daredevil, Matt Murdock, played by Charlie Cox, and a few friends in the law firm that are, celebrating a big win or a celebration of the firm doing so well. The friend was going to do a deposition in the morning about a vigilante case, and also what was going on down at the courts in New York City. And subsequently, a assassin by the name of Bullseye ends his life and a bunch of others as he attacks police at a bar. Daredevil winds up trying to kill him, but has compassion for him. Now, a little bit of a stretch here. He throws him off a 4-story building. He lands face first on the asphalt, but still survives. I, I don't know. I was like, this is how we're going to start things. But the reason why it says Daredevil Born Again was in the title is because at that point, um, he gave Matt gave up his Daredevil costume. He didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to just be a lawyer. Subsequently, the man he helped put away back from um, Hawkeye series, um, Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, is now rehabbed, and he is out, and he runs for mayor, and he winds up winning the mayorship. Again, just only in the comics, and can a guy who was named Kingpin would literally win the mayorship. I mean, politics is politics. Again, this could be a direct shot at who we've got in the presidency right now, as a crooked non-politician, because obviously Kingpin wasn't a politician, but he winds up winning because of his influence. So he wins that, um, and um, Daredevil still is not around. Crime's gone up a little bit, but Fisk is going to work on beating that crime thing. So meanwhile, his criminal enterprise is now being run by his wife. His wife has a pretty strong hold on everything. Wilson comes back into her life, and um, there's some wrangling going on in this first couple episodes where she's devoted to him still, but also trying to run the business without him interfering because now he is the mayor. So as he's running for mayor, and now that he's in the mayor's office, he has a little protege, um, played brilliantly by Gandolfini's son, who we saw in Warfare. Um, and I want to equate his character or his character and his persona to, yes, I'm going to mention DC in this one, but a guy like the Penguin. Um, when when Gotham was going on, which was a good show, which wasn't a part of the DC universe, but it is a DC product. Penguin was working his angles, and this guy has got the moxie. He does a couple of dumb things, thinks he's going to get fired, but Fisk knows that he's got some potential, and he kind of sees that because he's a go-getter. He's a little wild, he's a little crazy, but he's always working an angle. And just like Penguin did in Gotham, um, you've got that dynamic where he's going to really help Fisk get to where he needs to go. So, we've got you know Matt doing his lawyering thing. He's helping out the vigilantes. There's one case where he is helping the White Tiger, or a guy named the White Tiger, played by Camar de Los Reyes. He was Hector. He was trying to help um, stop an informant, or just a guy in the subway, but he wound up being an informant for the cops. Um, but he winds up killing one of the guys who's beating up, who happens to just be a cop. And of course, cops are always going to protect cops, i.e., see Karen Reed. All right, just Don't kill me or cancel me for that. But so they, um, put this guy on trial, and Matt's got to figure out how he's going to be able to survive and get this guy off the hook, because clearly he didn't know they were cops. He just saw two guys beating the hell out of somebody in a subway, and in New York, most people would just turn a blind eye to it and walked away, but not this guy, because again he was White Tiger. So the episode goes forward. We've got Matt knowing and hearing the cops talking about him not being able to testify, the witness, the guy that got beaten up. So he winds up finding out where he lives. He goes and talks to him. Two cops show up. They rough up Matt, and then finally Matt loses his cool, and he beats them up. Then there's the interesting little interaction with them. One of the cops on the stand, he has a black eye. Matt points out, "Hey, I heard that you have, a little bit of a black eye, and maybe you should tune it down on the boxing," and so on. So there's some contention there. So eventually he gets White Tiger off, um, and D'Onofrio's Kingpin, or Fisk, knows that Daredevil, or there's things about some of what's going on in the streets, that Daredevil may be back. Matt is not officially back as Daredevil, but he is getting to that point. So once Hector is released, he goes back out into the world as White Tiger, but then is gunned down in cold blood, executed on the streets. It is made to look like Frank Castle, played by John Bernthal, obviously the Punisher, a man dressed with Punisher gear, winds up shooting him in the back of the head, leaving him for dead. So Matt now is trying to reconcile what has happened. He has a love interest, played by Margarita Lavia, Heather Glenn. She also is doing psychology on Fisk and his wife, because obviously um, they're back together now, and she's not worried about him, but she's worried about um, the business and whether he's going to get caught up in this, but also the fact that he has been distant to her. Obviously he was away, um, locked up, or just gone away and come back into her life. But meanwhile, he they um, they know, or they announce that the wife had an affair with a guy, and Fisk knows this. And there is a little episode where he winds up going down into this sub level of some uh, uh, building, and down there he's eating while there's a guy behind bars. Obviously, it was the wife's lover at the time, or so we thought. But at the time, we're thinking it's her lover. He beats the hell out of him, throws him back in there, and then as Matt becomes the vigilante Daredevil, um, Fisk decides to put all the dirty cops on notice that they are part of a special task force to take down any masked vigilante, including Daredevil. Or even though he doesn't have a mask, but the Punisher and anybody who tries to step in their way. Now, funny little thing, they're in New York. Where's Spider-Man? Why did Spider-Man not make an appearance in this? He has a mask. Is it, is it because Spider-Man is not on the planet, or is he somewhere else? Um, that little things like that they'll have to clean up, and they'll have to clean up another mess that, um, or a little bit of a loophole from Thunderbolts, and I'll get to that soon. So basically, um, Matt uncovers the plot that it was actually his wife that set up, um, his best friend at the beginning of the show, Foggy Nelson's death, played by Eldon Henson, um, at the hands of Bullseye, played by Wilson Bethel. So all this stuff is going on, and there's um, a point where Matt and Frank have a little conversation. Frank does not want to get involved in anything that Matt's doing, but he's trying to get Matt to really embrace the Daredevil thing and get back into it. And then there is um, mass, mass murderer out there, um, painting the walls with graffiti of his victims in blood, called the Muse. Um, he goes after just random people on the streets and drains them of blood and then paints some murals. D'Onofrio's Fisk character is really um, wanting to go after it, but he also knows that if Daredevil is back, Daredevil will go after it. So he's kind of playing both sides, where he wants Daredevil to maybe stop him, but at the same time he knows his police force are going to do everything they can to try to bring him down. They're going to beat people up. They're going to do all this stuff, and they're going to get away with it because the commissioner at the time wanted to quit, couldn't do that because Fisk threatened his life and his family's. I mean, typical mob boss. Um, so, um, we get to a point where, for some reason, Fisk puts Bullseye into general public, and he winds up escaping. Winds up at this big gala. Goes to shoot the wife of um, Fisk, and Matt gets in the way. Um, and then this sets up the ending where he and so Daredevil and the Punisher are together. Um, Fisk sends in his task force to take them both out. Um, it's just absolute mayhem, bloody mess. Um, you know, Matt is trying to keep people alive, where Frank is just trying to kill everyone because Frank don't give a shit. He is the Punisher for a reason. So, then the Punisher goes after a boatload of task force members trying to get to Fisk. He's obviously subdued after he kills about, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them. There's still about 30, 40 more guys, and they beat him down. They tie him to a chair. Now, this is kind of the part where I get a little lost in this, and I know Punisher will be, um, coming back to the Marvel TV shows. Maybe might see him down the road in a movie or two. Who knows? Because we'll probably see Daredevil at some point as well. But um, you've got him there. The task force is trying to get him to join their group. Now they're all wearing body armor with the Punisher's face, telling him that, oh, we idolize you because you don't take no shit. We want you to be with us. And he tells them to go themselves, and saying that they're goddamn useless and weak and everything else, that they would idolize him and then be, little fairies running around. So he gets thrown in a cage. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the Punisher we're talking about. You're going to throw him in a cage with other people. You should probably just kill him at that point. But we'll digress. Daredevil makes his stand. Um, then he has to retreat. We also see Fisk make his stand with whoever stands in his way is now public enemy number one. So the police commissioner is brought to him. There's a bunch of people who are kind of on the fence, and he literally smashes his head in with his bare hands as people just watch in horror. I mean, it's pretty graphic, and you're like, damn. All right, season 2 is going to be good. Daredevil ends with Daredevil trying to gain his own, task force to go after Kingpin, Mayor, and his task force of brutal cops. I mean, some of these guys are just so crooked, and have had multiple rap sheets. So again, this has all been a very good series, and of course, we get to a cutscene where we see Frank talking to this rookie who's watching his cell, and he winds up breaking his arm and escaping. Again, who thought it would be a good idea to keep him alive? It is Punisher, after all. Should probably have killed him off. But anyway, the show was good. I was pleasantly surprised because, again, I was not a big fan of Daredevil. I was a big fan of Jessica Jones. Luke Cage was okay. Defenders was all right. I think there was one or two other ones. I just don't remember. But off the top of my head, probably should have wrote that down or looked back at my notes. But again, I thought this was a really good show leading into some more things. Obviously, bringing Punisher in to the MCU is probably a really good thing. And we, again, may see him down the road. We may see Daredevil in one of the movies as well. We don't know. Because, again, sworn to secrecy about things. However, obviously, Marvel decided to put out their cast announcements with the long chair, the chair trailer with Robert Downey Jr. at the end, letting us know who was going to be in the film. However, we know from leaks and whatnot that probably isn't going to be all of the cast, and we know that. I have read where there is rumors that obviously Chris Evans will be back, but we do not know what role he'll be in. However, there is reports that maybe, just maybe, he'll play 4 different characters. Now, again, we're talking about the end of the multiverse sagas. We've also heard that Robert Downey Jr. was not only brought back to play Doom, but he was also played, maybe coming back to play some other characters as well. Because again, we're talking about multiple universes here, so we have no idea. He could be playing another Iron Man. He could be playing some, just jumping around. And I think this is where a lot of the leaks are coming out and trying to give us some runaround. Who knows? We also know that Doctor Strange is on set. There have been some pictures. He was not announced on that trailer. So again, there's a lot of stuff going on. I think there's going to be so many more people in this film than what we know right now. And I think it's going to be amazing. Speaking of amazing, let's get to Thunderbolts. So, we've all seen the trailers for Thunderbolts. We know the characters. We know that we know that this movie is basically Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad a bunch of anti-heroes or somewhat heroic people who have done some really bad things come together and form a team. We're going to get into all of the things, so again, this can be spoilers and everything else. We have Florence Pugh, who plays Yolanda, obviously now the Black Widow. We have David Harbour playing Alexei, her father, the Red Guardian. Wyatt Russell is back to play, as they call him, the dime store, um, Captain America. We also have um, Hannah Joan Carmen playing Ghost. We also have Sebastian Stan as Bucky. At the time, he is the junior senator. We'll have him come in a little later. Um, and obviously, Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing Valentina, who had put this squad together on her little task force. And then we get a newcomer. We get Lewis Pullman. Yes, Bill Pullman's son from one of my favorite movies of all time, Spaceballs. Sentry, but his name is actually Bomb. Sentry or Void. So he's got 3 names in this movie. So we're going to get started. So we come upon Yolanda, Elena, um, having identity crisis. She is a widow that is not in love with her job anymore. Valentina sends her out to jobs. She just isn't feeling it anymore. She goes and sees Alexei. Alexei tells her, hey, you're doing great, so on. Maybe talk to Valentina about doing, something that you want to do. So she asks Valentina, once I'm done with this project, can I do something more out in the public? And Valentina says, oh yeah, sure, we'll have you do that. So Valentina's job at this point, she's trying not to get impeached by Washington. She makes um, a rib about, who's going to protect the world from, foreign, domestic, and out of this world because the Avengers are no more. So she wanted to put a task force together to combat that because we all know what happened to the president. Uh, Turned into a red Hulk and almost destroyed Washington, D.C. So there was that jab at Captain America. And so she is so very defiant. But she also knows that she's done a lot of shady things. We all know she did. So she's trying to cover it up. Her assistant, played by Geraldine Vaswanthan, I'm not, again, you know me in names, Mel, is somewhat conscious of Valentina's operations. She wants to do good by Valentina, but also at the same time, she knows Valentina is wielding way too much power and isn't really sure that Valentina has everyone's best interest at heart. Well, we all know that. So it's not anything that the story haven't been told already. So she says to Elena, "Go and do this one last job for me, and then I'll get you there." She winds up running into Captain America. She winds up running into Ghost. She winds up running into Taskmaster, and they start trying to kill each other because Valentina wants no loose ends. So she wants them to all kill each other. They figure it out that they should not be killing each other, although Ghost puts a bullet in Taskmaster's head. Can I just say, for the record, Taskmaster was a really good um, Spider-Man villain. To kind of get thrown into um, Black Widow and this movie, and then getting killed off in like, I don't know, the first 10 minutes. I think Marvel kind of did that Taskmaster dirty. I feel that way. I think they really botched it what they did with Black Widow in the Black Widow film, and then here they were just like, okay, let's just end this. So it's kind of disappointing in that, but we move on. So as they figure it out that they need to escape, Bob shows up out of nowhere. Now they figure out, well, this, where did he come? We're trying to ask him questions where he came from, but they're also figuring out that this has now become a death trap. But how did he get in there? He doesn't know. And eventually now they're going to try to find um, their way out. And so um, Captain America, um, he finds a box that kind of fell on the ground that had like a capsule in it. And that's where Bob fell out of. So they escape. It's a really funny scene. Um, they can't get the power back on to run the elevators. Um, they decide to walk up the elevator shaft all together. Um, it's extremely funny. They get to the top and realize that Valentina and her troops are waiting outside to kill them because the incinerator part that they escaped from didn't work. It fried everything else except for the loose ends. They they figure out a way to get through that by disguising themselves after they've killed a few of the agents that go in. But Bob, uh, who Valentina finds out is one of the only survivors of her um, secret experiments. So you had Steve Rogers way back in the day that Shield did their superhuman serum, and she was trying to do something along that line, and it had just failed on everybody except for Bob here, who just happened to be in the incinerator area and survived. So Bob is trying to help them escape. They take off in the truck and they look back and he's getting gunned down. But as we know, superheroes don't die right away. It kind of unlocks this very powerful being, which Valentina now understands. Ooh, I might have something here. And it worked. So he takes off into the sky and he comes back down in a very strong way. But he makes a big crater. He winds up, falling asleep, and because he can't control his power. And now Valentina has him um, in her possession, and the Thunderbolts. And I'll explain where they got the title in a minute. But Alexei knew that you know those guys were going to be put in a trap, drives all the way to their and they wind up meeting in the middle of the desert, and he's going to drive them back. Um, and he's talking. he David Harbour plays him so well. He is so funny. He talks about now that they are a super team, and uh, Alana is like, "What do you want to call us, the Thunderbolts?" Which was a reference to Yolanda playing soccer here in the U.S. Her team name was Thunderbolts, and so Alexei was like, "Oh, that's a great name. That's a great name. we're the Thunderbolts, and let's be a team and be on the Wheaties box and have our own little toys inside. And they're all like, oh my god, Alexi, so on. Now they're being chased by Valentina's goons when Bucky shows up and takes out the the goons, and then um, stops them in, blows up their car and holds them hostage for a bit to figure out what they were up to there, because he's only being fed bits and pieces from Mel, who is trying to kind of play both sides because she knows that, again, Valentina has so much control. Meanwhile, Valentina puts Bob, which she's going to call Sentry, into a chamber to kind of keep him under wraps. He doesn't know how to control his power. He doesn't know where his power comes from. And then he kind of gets a little angry and starts moving some stuff around. So he knows he's got powers. But then he grabs Valentina's arm, and Valentina goes into um, what is now known as the Void. And she is brought back to the day that scarred her emotionally for life with her father's killing, and where she had to escape and then, subsequently, had to survive on her own. And that's why she is who she is. So she knows now he's even got more powers that she could utilize. So, that being said, uh, they're trying to tell Bucky who Bob is, because Bob is sitting there. Uh, Bob was the one they were after. Bucky doesn't believe them one bit. And eventually Mel calls him while they're in presence. She talks about Bob, and he has some kind of special powers. So Bucky decides to give them an ultimatum. Come with me and be a team, and we'll take down Valentina together, or you can run away. And Alexi is like all for it. He's like, yes, finally back together. We're a team, and so on. And he's like, the Thunderbolts, and they're all like, oh my god, why are we called the Thunderbolts? And it's so funny. So they wind up getting into New York, where Bob now is Sentry, and they go to try to take Valentina down. Again, there's a lot of other stuff in there, but I'm trying to get to just the point of this movie so that we can propel into the next Marvel movie. So Valentina um, puts them, puts them up against Sentry. Sentry, or Bob, at this point, before he really turns the Sentry part on, doesn't want to fight them because they were the only ones that really tried to understand him, especially Elena. She was really trying to relate to him because he didn't know a lot of his past and so on, and she was having issues trying to figure out what she really wanted. And they talked about, filling a void. His void was his understanding of who he was and why he had powers. Hers was to feel belong, a feeling of belonging, and so on, and a purpose in her life. So, so eventually, they start attacking Sentry, and it doesn't go well. Sentry just overpowers all of them. Elena is trying to stop him from, hurting her team, and eventually she has to get involved, and he doesn't want to hurt her either. He allows them to escape down to, out of the room. Valentina wants him to go out and kill them, and he's like, they're not a threat to me because I just took them down. I'm not going to kill them because they're not a threat. However, you may be a threat to me. And she really puts him in his place, but at the same time, he's like, if I'm such a god, why am I going to take you know advice, and why do I have to listen to you? Valentina knows she's in trouble, um, and she goes to hit him with the stun gun, and of course he's about to rip her head off when somebody picks the stun gun up and hits a sentry with it, or Bob, whatever you want to call him at this point. It was Mel. So Mel's like, I want a raise for saving your ass. So Valentina sends up her task force to go upstairs and retrieve Sentry so that she can deal with him. Sentry is no longer there. Sentry now has become a darker being than anyone could have imagined, called the Void. So you saw from the previews an all black, like, you know, all black figure. Just kind of like a void, more like a cloud. He's got many, you know, movements and so on. And he has the power to just make people into black smoke, or if they're standing on the sidewalk, just make them disappear into a black um, shadow figure on the floor, on the asphalt. So he, we're all thinking, oh my God, he's killing all these people in New York, all these innocent people. There is, a really hard scene where Lexi helps this little girl from falling debris, and then she is dusted away right in front of him, and he turns around and he's like, oh my God. So Elena at that point is looking around and saying, we can't defeat him, we suck as a team, I'm leaving. And they all kind of like just stand around and are like, oh, all right, whatever. Alexei tracks her down, talks to her, says, you're a leader, and just gives her a pep talk. And she tells him, oh, that's so good, let's go. Um, but she also self-sacrifices herself because she knows that maybe, just maybe, she can stop the Void if she can get to Bob inside of that body. So as he is going down the streets of New York, wiping out entire buildings, covering them in the black smoke, and making people just vanish into. So we're not doing the blip, we're doing a complete blackout. Um, and he's basically just wiping everyone off. Um, but as Alana steps into this black thing, she's wiped away, and Lexi thinks that she's dead. But uh, Bucky says, "Well, maybe she's not dead. Maybe you know she did this for a reason. Maybe she has an idea of what he could be. So let's go in and get her." And they're like, "Okay, let's do it." So they walk in. Now, Alina finds this void that we keep talking about is basically um, all these people that were dusted are in their own personal nightmares or traumatic events that has happened to them. So they are just kind of stuck in limbo. So they're not dead, they're just in a very bad place. So we see uh, Elena's troubling past where she has this uh, dream over and over again of one of her best friends when she was with the Red Room getting killed in cold blood by one of the agents. And then she goes into another room where she is the fastest one to put a gun together, and the rest of them are getting whipped in the hands while she stands there. And then she's given a gun and starting shooting people. Again, all of these memories that were traumatic to her are now starting to filter in, and she's got to fight through it. She finally winds up figuring out how to get to Bob. Bob is stuck in a room, or his room, where he grew up. His traumatic backstory is that his parents were abusive, or at least his father was. Her, his mother was beaten. He was beaten. Um, and at times his mother blamed him for why the father was abusive. So it was that whole dynamic where he had to keep living this over and over again, where he was living in his room and he could hear what was going on, and then subsequently he's looking down through a hole in the floor and he shows, Elena what actually happened to him on a daily basis, where he is just getting his butt whipped by his father, his mother's getting butt whipped, and then his mother is, verbally abusing him, saying that it's your fault, you're the reason why this is happening. So again, he's got such a horrible backstory. So Yolanda, Elena, finds a happy medium with him and says, you have to fight this. You have to get through this. You have to get to your body. You have to get to your mind. How many more rooms are there that you have to go through? And he's like, there's so many of them. This is the only safe one I have. And it's really not that safe because he has to live through that traumatic stuff. But with the help of the rest of them, they figure out a way to get to the Void. And he almost becomes the Void himself and basically would have just wiped out the entire New York City area and tri-state area and so on, because he would have been too powerful to stop, which will be helpful when we get further into the MCU's, Avengers movies. I think he's going to become a real big threat to Doom. And again, maybe they'll just wipe him out early. Who knows? But anyway, Bob defeats the Void in his mind, and everything returns back to normal. Everyone who's dusted winds up showing back up. So we're not blipping here for 5 years. We literally blipped for like a second. It felt like a second for them, as they said, "Oh, well, we were just here, and we're back." Again, it wasn't 5 years like the blip, but again, it was only 1 second to them. It was kind of very quick. They're able to become a team, and they go after Valentina, but Valentina pulls the rug on them because they were going. Alexei wanted to kill her on the street, but no, Bucky wanted to bring her to justice so that she could get impeached, and she had a camera crew ready to go as she walked through a curtain. She announces them as the new Avengers, and Helena as the face of the new Avengers. So, if you were wondering what the asterisk was for, that is the reason why the asterisk was there. They were known as the Thunderbolts by Alexei, but they became the new Avengers. So you have now a new Avengers squad, but you also had from Captain America, you had another Avenger squad, or Avenger squad that Sam was putting together. So this movie is very well done from a storytelling performance. Again, both Marvel, the Daredevil show, and Thunderbolts will get my 2 thumbs up. Again, I was very surprised about Daredevil, but this movie does so much for the MCU. And there were 2 post-credit scenes. One was kind of a throwaway. It was very funny. Um, Remember, I said earlier on, Alexei was talking about being on a box of Wheaties. So he is in a grocery store in his tracksuit, glasses. There's a woman standing there trying to choose cereal, and he's like talking to her like, "Oh, look at all the choices of cereal," and he's like, "Oh, look at this one, the box of Wheaties and the new Avengers," and then he holds it up and he's kind of pointing at himself as Red Guardian, and he hands her the box, and she's like looking at him like, "Oh my God, just get away from me! I'll take the box." But as she starts to roll the corner, she puts the box down and walks away. Um, and he's like, "Well, they are good for children." I'm like, "Oh my God, just so funny." So now we get to the end of the movie, and we get an end credit scene. So there was a lot of speculation as to where they were going with the cutscene. Were they going to leap into maybe a possibility of what Doomsday is going to look like, or were they just going to keep the stories rolling? Well, this one takes place 14 months after the events of With Void. So Bob and bootleg Captain America, the dime store, you know, um, Captain America, and obviously Ghost and Alexei and Bucky and Elena are now in arguments about why Sam will not join the two Avengers together. So Sam's Avengers are being looked at as the true Avengers, which we don't know who they are yet. So that is going to be something that we will be looking at as we go along here. I would assume, um, now that we're into Phase 6, now that Thunderbolts ends Phase 5, I would assume that some of the shows or maybe the movies will link into who Sam has recruited for his Avengers. So, um, Elena's talking to Bucky. Why is Sam not responding to you, or why are we not going to join forces? And why are they taking the Avengers and they're telling us that we are not the Avengers? So Alexei comes out in this tracksuit, like a NASCAR, and it's got all these sponsors on it, and he's like, "We should be known as the Avengers with a Z." So he has Avengers written across with a Z, and he's like, "See, no copyright, and we don't have to, join them. We can be our own Avengers." And they're all like, "Oh my God, like, Alexei, just stop already." Um, Elena is looking at her columns, says, "Oh, we got a problem in space," and uh, John, that's what his name is, the Captain America, is like, "What are you talking about? This place has so much space." And she's like, "No, I'm talking about outer space." This is where a voice says, "Incoming unknown vessel." So we start to see a visual coming at them. It's a ship. They enhance it a little bit, and they're all like, "Wow, that's a pretty cool ship." And right on the outside of the hull is the Fantastic Four symbol. This is all we know. So now we have we have an ending to a next movie. So where we've had these cutscenes that have kind of bounced everywhere and then kind of put it together. Now it looks like, I think, that they're going to start linking the movies together so that we can get cohesion and they don't lose anything along the way, because there are there were plenty of mid-credit scenes or end-credit scenes that they never used during Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. They never linked them together. So maybe this is a ploy. Now, the Russos were said to have directed the credit scenes, so they knew what they wanted to portray. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to who was actually on that ship headed to Earth. Was it the Fantastic Four? Or could it have been Doom himself? And we won't know that until we get to Final Fantasy, Fantastic Four First Steps, which, to be honest, I am still very hesitant about. We've done Fantastic Four many, many times. Now, I know technically they have not been a Marvel studio production. They were Sony and Fox. So there is hope that it could be good. And I'm hoping it will be because, again, we're going to try to keep the momentum going. Again, Captain America was deemed a bomb by critics. Also, some of the fandom didn't like it either. But do you realize it's still in the theaters doing money? A movie doesn't bomb and still do money. Like, Snow White is no longer in the theaters. And if it is, it's not doing any money. So, again, there's so many definitions of what is a bomb and what isn't. But for the MCU, right now, I'm saying is on the right track to get to the end of Phase 6, and then we're going to get Phase 7 and 8. There's already reports of Phase 7 being the mutant era, so we're going to get all the mutants, especially an X-Men movie. Ryan Reynolds has also talked about doing a Daredevil and X-Men movie together. Sounds like a plan. I mean, you just had one of the biggest box office, for an R-rated movie, Deadpool and Wolverine last year. Why not put these guys together again? Put them together again in every movie. I don't care if they're cameos in movies at this point. They're going to draw. So the MCU is on track, and I'm loving every minute of it. So, what did you guys think of the movie if you've seen it? If you haven't seen it, and as of yet, comment later on. And I left a lot of things out. I tried to keep it as simple as possible and try to keep this episode as not as long as possible. But I know I ran it over because I had two things to put in here. But again, I've got so much Marvel, fandom in me. Just like I have the Star Wars one, which I'm waiting to do maybe another review when Andor's done. They just released Tales of the Underworld, I think, or something. I just saw it drop today. I don't remember, but again, we'll get into that. So again, I want to thank everyone for listening. Subscribe, please, if you can. Share. I know you guys are enjoying the content. I get the reports on that. Just hit that subscribe button. And again, you don't have to love everything that I do, but you are listening, and I do very much appreciate it. Tell your friends too. All right. And as always, I will see you all at the movies.
You like that, baby? Let him know where I came from, yeah!
See you next time. Bye.
Waiting for you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
That's all, folks.